I've generated over six figures from online business, and one thing I've learned is money isn't always what it looks like. If you've ever felt like everyone around you just seems to have all of the money, unlimited funds, and they seem richer than you, trust me, there's a reason for this. And in today's video, we are going to show why you feel that way and what's really going on behind the scenes. Number one, people flex income, not wealth. Now we have to remember what the difference between wealth and income are, right? So you can think of income in terms of you getting a paycheck, right, from your job, right? You get this continuous paycheck, and this is just an example where you go to work, you work 40 hours, and every 2 weeks you get a check, right? And what is that? That's active income because you're working for the dollar that you're earning, right? So it's active income. You're grinding, but you're getting paid for the work you do. But of course, technically, they're probably underpaying you because companies have to make profit, right? And at the end of the day, they have to make profit off of you, right? So that's just basic 101. And then you have wealth. Now, what is wealth? Now, wealth a lot of times is in the form of owning assets that generate income for you that you don't have to necessarily put in all of that work. Now of course, you could have things like real estate, you could have things like stocks, right? There's plenty of different assets out there that can generate income for you, and of course you have to put in work in real estate, but these are basically things that put money into your pocket instead of take money out. And that, again, money out are liabilities while money in are assets, right? So a lot of people, what they tend to do is they're flexing that active income that they just worked for. So they make the money, and what do? They take that money and they go spend it, right? And you have cars, clothes, fancy vacations, right? And a lot of times even these things are financed, right? They don't own a lot of these things. And you're literally comparing, right, what you see to someone else's highlight reel. So keep that in mind, right? Most people just flex the paycheck when what they really should be looking at is their net worth, right? What type of assets do they actually have in their portfolio that are generating income? Are they taking their money and just spending it right there? Or are they getting their money, investing it into these assets, and then spending the assets' money, right? Because that's really the game. It's all mental, right? But keep in mind what people like to do. Number two, debt makes people look richer. Now this is interesting, right? Because you have all of these different, buy now, pay later programs that seem to have just, blown up on the internet, to where anytime you're checking out, let's say you're on an online website and you're checking out, there's always Klarna or these other companies that you can buy now, pay later. And what is that doing? Right? So they're going to charge you interest, right? So you're going to make a smaller payment today. Let's say you're paying $1,000 for a phone, right? You're going to make a smaller payment today, but the issue is over the long-term period of time, they're charging you interest. If you're paying the minimum payment, they're just going to make more and more money off of you long-term. And if you can't make the payment, trust me, these companies will come after your assets, try to sue you, right? Harass you, call you, all of these things, right? And what happens is, right, it's all smoke and mirrors. So people are using, right, these different platforms. They're financing things, getting loans out on things that they can't afford. And they're really focused more on the perception of others, right, in their instant gratification than their own actual financial success. Right. So, and it's hard to separate the two because you just see it so often, right? You go out on the street and it looks like people are winning, right? Anyone can look like they're wealthy, right? They're wearing the Louis Vuitton. They're wearing all these things, man. They got the latest, sneakers. They have all these things, right? But what you don't see is the stress that comes with these things, right? When the bill collector is calling, you don't see that stress. Right? You don't see that stress when they can't pay rent at the end of the month, when the utilities are a little higher than they expect, and because they didn't account and leave emergency savings, now they can't pay it, right? You didn't see all of that stress, but you see the outside, right? And a lot of times things look good on the outside, but you really need to focus on what's going on internally, right? Because your internal, right? Even your self-worth and what you believe about yourself, right? If you believe that this brand is going to make me, a person, it's going to make me more valuable, right? Then you will get tricked as well, right? And it's just marketing. They make you think that you plus getting this item equals, it makes you cool, right? It makes you dope. But in all reality, they're playing on the individual's self-worth. So remember, right? People that are wearing those things, and not everyone, right? But if you allow those to become your identity, it's a problem. And that's why people, again, tend to look crazy, right? They look crazy on the internet. And number three, social media distorts reality. So again, social media, you have to remember, are highlight reels of people's lives, right? People don't show their day to day, what they're going through. Imagine if people were putting that financial stress that they were going through on the internet. They're not doing that. They're posting, the new car, right? The Mercedes, the Mustang, the Ferrari, right? The jewelry, right? The designer, all of these things. And it's a facade. It's a facade where they hide, right, their self-worth and their value with these other materialistic things. And it's not wrong to have materialistic things. But the majority of people, right, that are buying Gucci, Louis Vuitton, all these things, these people they're not wealthy, right? They want to look rich, but they're not rich, right? And you have things like vacations, right? All these new purchases, right? There's it looks, but it looks, right, like success. But remember, it's short term. And if you're watching this, you want to play the long term game, right? You never see, again, the debt, the arguments, the financial stress. People only show the best versions of themselves online. So take everything you say with a grain of salt, right? But you're watching this because you want to build that financial freedom. You want your money to work for you, generate passive ways to make money online. And I've learned, right, a method on YouTube that allowed me to generate that six figures and be able to have semi-passive income, right? Again, in talking about something that I loved to talk about, and I didn't even have to show my face. So if you're interested in learning more, click the link down below. Number 4, lifestyle creep keeps people broke. Now, when you have, right, a society that flexes, right, the watch, all these things, right, all these liabilities that are not going to make them more money, what happens is you tend to want to follow suit, right? You think about people living in New York, for example. New York is the fashion capital of the world. And what happens is you go and you see all of these people wearing all of these things, right? They look so wealthy. But then how many people are in financial stress in New York? One of the most expensive places to live in the world, probably, if not the most expensive, has some of the highest rent rates. Cost of living is insane. But then everyone has designer, right? Everyone has the latest things, but it's literally a trap meant to keep you in that cycle, right? Meant to keep you working, right? If you, again, people can have jobs that they like. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you don't like the position that you're in, then that's where the problem lies, right? So you have to see that other people are in this rat race to where it's consume, work. But the reason they never break free is because they don't take what they make and invest it into assets. They buy more liabilities that just keeps them broke, right? And the lifestyle creep, when you see other people doing these things, it is so difficult to have the discipline and the self-control to say, you know what, I have enough. I'm not going to buy what they have. I'm not going to try to keep up with them. What I'm going to do is invest, put my money in a place where it can work for me. And when things compound, right, and when an opportunity comes, I'm able to invest in these assets that allow me to have more freedom in the long term, instead of just looking at, the short-term flex and trying to be like everyone else. Right? Most people look like they're ahead, but they're literally in the same exact cycle. Number 5, you're comparing different seasons of life. Now, this is a huge one as well, right? Because someone could be in their 40s. This dude could be rich. He loves designer. He's wearing all these things. And you're, 20s, 30s, maybe even 40s, but you're not at that financial part, right? You're not at that financial stage, and you're comparing yourself to where they're at, right? And that's one of the worst things you could do, because you comparing yourself to them, it literally makes no sense, right? It's a different human being, right? And obviously, no one is better than you, but you're not there yet, right? So you can't look at someone else's chapter in their life, right, where they're able to afford these different things and expect to just magically it happen overnight, especially if you didn't put in the work necessary to get that, right? Because money is just a reflection of the value that you're providing to a marketplace, right? That's all it is. It's an exchange of value. So when you look at someone else, keep that in mind, right? You don't know what they went through to get those things. And the fact that they even have those things, again, remember, it can make you a target as well, right? Someone sees you wearing, a $30,000 watch, $20,000 chain, all these things. It's going to catch people's eye, right? So even if they are making that money and they are in a different season, they're not immune from something happening to them, unfortunately, because of showing these different things, right? And remember, comparison is always the thief of joy. Number 6, real wealth is invisible. Roth IRA, 401k, brokerage account, right? All of these things are huge factors, right, in long-term financial success. Even high yield savings account, you can say, right? So all of these things are huge factors in terms of financial success, but literally you can't see them from the outside, right? It's the habits that someone instilled into their lives that they're doing over the long period of time that you literally can't see. All you can see is, for example, I have a Casio on right now. How much is a Casio? $20, $30, if that? But right, you don't see my retirement fund. All you see is what I present to you, right? And the people who look average a lot of times end up being the wealthiest because they're so focused on generating, right, income in assets that build them that wealth that they don't have to work for it anymore. Their assets are literally generating the money for them. And yes, they can spend it on whatever they want. Sure, even if it is designer, but they're not playing the same game as you, because their money management is just on a completely different level, and they look at money as a tool to buy them freedom and not buy them more liabilities. And a lot of times, true money is indeed boring, right? Again, take everything with a grain of salt that you see on the internet, but this is why people get richer than you. And if you want to learn more, click this video on the screen now.